Cubs are definitely in the mix for a starter, looking for an ace or someone close to an ace to go to the top of the rotation, maybe slot there between Shota Imanaga and Justin Steele. Is Luis Castillo a candidate? Well, according to reports, yes. But would it make sense for the Cubs? And is there a reason why they're not going all in on a trade with the Mariners? We're going to get into that right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Appreciate all of you. Let's get this show started. All right, Mick Gillespie here on the Cubs Baseball channel. And as I mentioned to you guys a lot, lifelong Cubs fan. Good times, bad times, real bad times, kind of bad times, great times, fun times, beer drinking in the bleachers times. Hey, that's why you're here to talk Cubs baseball. And I know that you guys probably grew up like me, Harry Carey, Steve Stone, and loving the North Siders, right? So this is what this channel's all about. You know that. What I want to talk about today is how do we get back to being a real contender for the World Series, not just a contender to make the playoffs, not 83 and 79, we're not sure, question marks. How do we get to the point where the Cubs are ready to really contend for a championship? It starts with pitching. I think we all know that. There's some movable pieces with all these outfielders. Who's going to play third? You know, we talked about that yesterday. Deals the Cubs could make in that area. But what I want to get into right now is the starting pitching market. And it doesn't seem like the Cubs are going to go out and spend a boatload of money. I mean, they just sold Cody Bellinger off, and now there's a guy out there that they could possibly get that would, be available, according to reports, Luis Castillo of the Seattle Mariners. And the Cubs are listed as a team that's in the mix, although this one looks like it's going to end up being Baltimore and not the Cubs. Now, the Cubs certainly have an interest here, but there's a few, I want to say, roadblocks that some of the great writers have talked about. Ken Rosenthal of The Athletics talked about his contract option, that basically there's an option that if he were to be on the IL 25 through 27 for 130 consecutive days, that there's a $5 million option for 2028, right? And okay, so maybe that gives the team a little bit of, well, you know what, if he ends up with, Tommy John or something, and we lose him for a long time and he comes back, we're going to get him for $5 million if you want to get him for $5 million. But Rosenthal then talks about how having that shows that the Mariners feel like there's an issue with his health and that there's a concern there. And then when you're paying, a lot of money for a pitcher, you worry about their health. The other thing, and you really got to keep this in mind if you're going to make a deal for a starting pitcher, is, what are you getting out of it, right? So 2.5 years, Luis Castillo's value after he signed that mega deal with the Mariners has definitely slipped, right? 2022, Cy Young candidate. He's owed, $68 million over the next 3 years. Is he going to be valued at that when it's all said and done? I mean, last year, 11 and 12, a 3.64 ERA, it was good, right? But where the analytics kind of work against him, and you guys know I'm not all about analytics. I don't think that it's the be-all, end-all, but I think that it is a good tool when you're trying to evaluate where you're putting your resources. Here's where the concern is with Luis Castillo and paying him that kind of money, and why you have some question marks. First is his fastball. I mean, you're talking about a guy that was ripping it off at 97 and 22, right, when he was his best year. And then that's slipped 2 miles per hour to 95. Now, I'm not saying 95 is hittable, right? Now, it's really like 95.6 a year ago in 24. But he's not striking out as many hitters, right? So I think that changing speeds and moving the ball around the plate and, and setting batters up, you can get strikeouts there too. But power pitchers, they want to basically just throw the ball by you. And it feels like with Castillo that that option of throwing 97 on average, slipping down to 95, has allowed batters to make more contact, and he hasn't struck out as many. I think the other thing too is that Seattle's ballpark is big. T-Mobile Park has always been a pitcher's park, and when he's at home, he's good. Just like almost pitching in San Francisco is the same way. Like, it just feels like it's a pitcher's ballpark, and he's got a 2.89 ERA when he's at home. Now, when he goes on the road, hey, that earned run average is sub 4, right? So how will that translate into pitching at Wrigley Field? Sometimes it's, a pitcher's paradise when the wind's blowing in. When the wind's blowing out, anything in the air could be a home run. You guys know that. Or anything in the air could be deep trouble. And so that could be why the Mariners are willing to move him. And that they have a young, talented rotation. Logan Gilbert and Brandon Wu and George Kirby. They've got some arms that are young that they feel good about moving. And I'm sure at the same time, they're looking at that big contract and they're like, you know what? If we're going to move this guy, now's the time to move him. Now, John Morosi has said that the Baltimore Orioles and Bob Nightingale has mentioned that the Baltimore Orioles, that they're pretty close to making a deal for Castillo. So who knows? Maybe by the time you watch this, Castillo will have been traded to Baltimore. And they've got a lot of prospects. I mean, they tanked for a few years and built up a great farm system, and they've got players to move. I mean, they did that last year for Corbin Burns and got an ace, and then Burns went out and signed a big contract. So now they're going to probably do the same thing again here and try to get to a World Series championship, where Baltimore has all those young, talented hitters, but the pitching fell apart last year in the postseason, and they haven't done anything in the postseason. And they've worked hard this hot stove year to try to get better. So maybe Castillo's that move. And it's not like he's chopped liver. It's what I'm saying, though, is that for the Cubs, for this to make sense, they are going to have to pay, right? You're going to have to pick up that contract, which feels like the Mariners don't want to do anymore. And maybe their analytics are going, hey, man, this guy's trending down. We can move him off now where there's still value. Take a risk. Hey, somebody else might get him and he might end up being really good. But if he's not, hey, we're not on the hook for him. And then the other thing is you get talent back. And the Orioles have talent to send back, and they are probably at a spot where they're desperate to get that ace, and they'll make that move. Are the Cubs there? Well, if I'm the front office, I'm looking for someone to be the ace of the staff. We've talked about that. And for the Cubs, they've got to add pitching to what they have right now, or I'm not going to be confident that they're going to go into this season much better than they were last year. I think they need some back-end bullpen aces, and I think they need another big-time starter. So Castillo will get you there, but the money doesn't feel like it's going to be flowing from the front office, and I understand why. I mean, you're looking at Dansby Swanson, you're looking at Jason Hayward. They're not going to say Dansby Swanson, why'd we spend all this money on this guy who's like an eighth batter? But that's something that when they're in their private rooms and they're talking about this, they're going, what did we do here? And so I'm sure they're a little hesitant to go out or maybe a lot hesitant to go, or maybe just hesitant to go out and spend a lot of money on someone else. And it is a business. And I know we as fans want them to go out and just keep throwing money at it, like some of the teams do. But it doesn't feel like that's the Cubs' way, or at least with a front office that only has 1 year left on their contract. So we'll see what happens. I just don't think that the Cubs are going to make this move. And I feel like it's the money plus the talent that you would have to send back with these analytics in there. What's he going to do at Wrigley Field? And then what's he going to do on the road? Are his stats helped out by the fact that he pitches in a pitcher's ballpark? If he goes to Baltimore, what's that going to look like, right? They're going to have to give talent back and pay the money. And so as we look for solutions, I think that we're kind of stuck in this area where we're going, okay, well, maybe there's some other moves to be made. And those other moves may be, we talked about it, Jack Flaherty, who's maybe the top free agent pitcher out there right now. Who knows what that's going to cost you if you're the Cubs, but I don't know about that because of the money available. They do have money because of the move they made with Cody Bellinger. And then, another guy to keep an eye on would be Tanner Scott. Would you want to go out and get Tanner Scott? He's, a former closer with the Padres and other teams. And he's someone that I think would be a more affordable option for the Cubs. Last year between Miami and San Diego, he had 72 appearances, a 9-6 record, and a 1.75 ERA. And he had 11 holds. And so, it's not like he's a strikeout machine, but he gets outs and he's pitched in high leverage situations. So if you're the Cubs and you're looking for some solutions, those are two guys to keep an eye on, unless there's another trade. And then we've talked about Pablo Lopez with the Twins, who, again, another guy that you're going to have to spend the money on, but, you're going to get him somebody back a lot like Castillo, who has shown success pitching and getting wins and gives you a lot of innings out there. But, we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's where we are right now. Thanks for hanging out with us on the channel. Again, appreciate all of you guys. Get in the comments section. Got some fun stuff coming up. Some announcements coming real soon as far as things we're going to do in the future. And Cubs convention. I know everybody's fired up. They released the schedule for the Cubs convention. And although I'm not going to be there this year, as a former panelist for years, love the Cubs convention. They do it the best. And those guys that put it together, Jim and the crew, could not do a better job of giving you an awesome event every year with that Cubs convention. And I think next year is my return date. But Sammy's going to be there this year. I want to go there and steal his thunder. I'm just kidding. Hey, love you guys. Go Cubs. And we will talk to you again tomorrow unless something breaks. And who knows, maybe the Cubs make a deal and we'll slide back into the studio and do another show. Have a great day.